Beatriz had been looking forward to a quiet evening. After a long day at work, all she wanted was to relax, perhaps watch a movie or read a book. She made herself a cup of tea and sank into the couch, letting the quiet of the apartment settle around her. The light from the street outside flickered gently through the curtains, casting soft shadows on the walls. The phone rang, its sharp tone cutting through the silence. Beatriz frowned. It was an unknown number, and she rarely received calls at this hour. She stared at the screen for a moment, hesitating. She could let it go to voicemail, but something nudged her to answer. "Hello?" she said, her voice still thick with the exhaustion of the day. A pause. Then a woman's voice, smooth but chilling, came through the receiver. "He's with me." Beatriz blinked, confused, unsure if she had heard correctly. "What?" "Your boyfriend," the voice continued, her tone almost smug. "He's with me now. I'm calling to let you know that I'm with him. I'm the one he's been seeing behind your back." Beatriz felt her heart skip a beat. She looked at the phone, as if the device itself might offer an explanation. This had to be some kind of joke, right? A prank call, perhaps. She glanced at the clock. It was late. Too late for any normal phone call. And yet, there was a strange confidence in the woman's voice that unnerved her. "Who is this?" Beatriz asked, her voice wavering slightly, despite her best efforts to remain calm. The voice on the other end seemed to smile. "I'm the one who's been keeping him company. You'll find out soon enough." Beatriz's mind raced. She knew her boyfriend Ethan had been acting distant lately, but she never suspected something like this. She had tried to ignore the signs, his late nights at work, the occasional text that didn't seem right, the way he seemed to pull away when she asked about his day. But hearing it from a stranger's voice, knowing that someone else was involved, made it all feel real in a way she couldn't ignore. "Why are you doing this?" Beatriz asked, her voice barely above a whisper now. The woman's voice softened slightly, as if savoring the moment. "Because I think you need to know. I think you deserve to hear it from me. He's mine now." Beatriz felt a wave of anger mixed with confusion wash over her. She wanted to hang up, to ignore the woman, but something inside her urged her to press for answers. "What do you want from me?" Beatriz asked, her voice steadier now, but still laced with emotion. There was a long pause on the other end. Then, almost as if the woman had been waiting for her to ask, she replied, "I want you to understand that this is real. And soon, you'll see. I'm not lying." Beatriz clenched her fist around the phone, her knuckles white. Her thoughts swirled in a chaotic mix of disbelief and fear. She wasn't sure what to believe, but she knew one thing for certain. This wasn't a prank. This was something much darker, something that would change everything. "Don't call again," Beatriz said, her voice firm. "I'm done with this." But before she could hang up, the woman's voice stopped her. "Wait," the woman said, her voice suddenly colder. "You'll be hearing from me again, don't worry." And with that, the line went dead. Beatriz sat in stunned silence, the phone still pressed to her ear. The sound of the dead line was like a cruel reminder that the call was over. But her mind was far from finished. She slowly lowered the phone, her hand trembling ever so slightly. Her heart pounded in her chest as the room around her felt suddenly smaller, more suffocating. She set the phone down on the coffee table with deliberate slowness, as if afraid that any hasty movement might shatter the fragile illusion of control she still had. The silence in the apartment seemed overwhelming now, the kind that presses against your ears and makes you second-guess everything. She glanced at the clock again. It was past midnight. Ethan should have been home by now, but he wasn't. She tried to push the thought away. Maybe he had been held up at work. Maybe he was out with friends. But even as she thought this, a nagging feeling curled up inside her. The voice of the woman from the phone echoing in her mind. "I'm the one he's been seeing behind your back." She shook her head, trying to shake off the sense of dread that had settled deep in her bones. This couldn't be real. Ethan wouldn't do that to her. They'd been together for 3 years, and though their relationship had hit a rough patch recently, she trusted him, didn't she? But then she remembered the small signs, the late-night texts that seemed to go unanswered, the strange distance between them when they were together, his reluctance to talk about his day. Maybe it had been there all along, creeping in unnoticed. No, she told herself. Don't jump to conclusions. This is just some sick joke. But the woman's words rang in her ears. They were too specific, too confident to be a random prank. Could it be someone who knew too much about Ethan's life? Could someone have been watching them? A part of Beatriz wanted to call him immediately, to demand an explanation. But another part of her hesitated. What if this was true? What if Ethan was really seeing someone else? She paced the apartment, running her fingers through her hair, trying to gather her thoughts. The phone call had left her disoriented, and she had to make sense of it all. Maybe it was time to confront him. But no. She needed proof first, proof that would be irrefutable. She couldn't just go accusing him without knowing for sure. It wouldn't be fair to him, or to herself. Just then, her phone buzzed, the sudden sound making her jump. She stared at the screen, half expecting it to be the unknown woman, but instead it was a text from Ethan. I'm sorry, babe. I'll be home soon. Just finishing up some work stuff. Love you. Beatriz read the message over and over again, her heart sinking with every word. It seemed so ordinary, so normal, but the nagging voice at the back of her mind refused to quiet. She tapped her fingers on the edge of the table, biting her lip. Was this him, or was it someone else? Maybe he wasn't the one texting her. Maybe it was the woman. Her thoughts were spinning, and the walls of the apartment suddenly felt smaller. She sat down on the couch again, the weight of the situation pressing down on her chest. Her phone buzzed again, and this time, it was a missed call from an unknown number. Beatriz's stomach dropped. It could be her, the woman from before, or maybe Ethan calling to explain himself. Without thinking, she tapped the screen to call the number back. The line rang once, twice, then picked up. Hello? Beatriz's voice came out shaky, but she fought to keep it steady. A long pause. Then, a voice, calm, almost too calm, answered. You really think I'm lying, don't you? Beatriz's heart skipped. It was her, the woman. I don't know what you want from me, Beatriz stammered, trying to maintain control. Why are you doing this? There was a soft laugh on the other end. I'm not doing anything. I'm just telling you the truth. He's with me. You'll understand soon enough. Who are you? Beatriz demanded, her voice more firm this time. But the fear still lingered. What's your game? Another pause. Then the voice responded with an eerie calmness. You'll find out when the time is right. But don't waste your time calling him. He's not going to answer. The line went dead once again. Beatriz felt her breath quicken. She tried to call Ethan again, but it went straight to voicemail. Panic started to rise in her chest, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was losing control of everything. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And she wasn't sure she could trust anyone anymore. The next morning, Beatriz barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she was haunted by the woman's voice. The eerie calmness, the certainty in her words. He's with me now. The phrase echoed in her mind like a broken record. She couldn't focus at work, couldn't concentrate on anything. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Ethan, to the mysterious call, to the sense of dread that had settled over her. By the time she returned home, the silence of the apartment felt suffocating. Ethan's car was parked outside, but he wasn't inside. Beatriz stood at the door for a moment, uncertainty gnawing at her. She didn't know what she expected, but the house felt emptier than it had the night before. The weight of her thoughts pressed down on her chest as she stepped inside. She had left a message for him, a simple one. We need to talk. But he hadn't responded. Her stomach churned. She needed answers. Answers that only he could give. Beatriz walked through the apartment, her footsteps soft on the hardwood floors. She glanced at the couch where they had spent countless evenings together, watching movies, sharing conversations. It all felt so distant now. She couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change, that her relationship with Ethan, everything she thought she knew, was slipping away. She grabbed her phone, staring at the screen for a long time. She had already tried calling him, but he hadn't answered. This wasn't like him. Ethan was always quick to reply, always available when she needed him. But today was different. Everything felt different. Her hand hovered over the phone for a moment, indecision making her hesitate. But then she did it. She scrolled through her contacts and dialed Ethan's number once more. It rang for what felt like an eternity. Beatriz's heart beat faster with each passing second. Finally, it clicked, and the voice on the other end was familiar. Ethan's voice. But there was something in his tone that made her stomach drop. "Hey, babe. I'm so sorry. I was caught up at work. What's up?" Beatriz's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to feel relieved, to hear him speak, but something about his words felt distant, disconnected. She cleared her throat, trying to keep her voice steady. "We need to talk, Ethan," she said, her voice firm but soft. "Something's going on, and I need you to explain." There was a pause on the other end, a long one. I know, we'll talk about it," Ethan replied, but his voice didn't sound reassuring. "I'll be home in about an hour. Just wait for me." Beatriz felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Wait for him? It didn't feel right. The woman's words from the night before came rushing back to her. "Ethan, I need you to be honest with me," Beatriz said, her voice shaking. "There's something I don't understand. Something's happening, and I need to know what it is. Please." Ethan sighed, his voice heavy with something Beatriz couldn't quite place. "I'm sorry, Beatriz. I really am. But I promise we'll talk when I get home. Just trust me on this." The call ended before Beatriz could respond. She stood there, staring at the phone in her hand, her mind racing. Trust him? How could she trust him now, after everything? The uncertainty, the unease, the lies. Everything felt like it was unraveling before her eyes. An hour later, Ethan finally walked through the door. He looked tired, his face etched with worry. Beatriz stood in the middle of the living room, her arms crossed over her chest, waiting for him to speak. The air between them felt thick, charged with the tension of unspoken words. "I'm home," Ethan said softly, his eyes meeting hers. "Let's talk." Beatriz swallowed, her heart pounding in her chest. She wasn't sure where to start, but she knew she couldn't hold back anymore. The questions had to be asked. "What's going on, Ethan?" she demanded, her voice trembling with frustration. "Why won't you tell me the truth?" Ethan hesitated for a moment, his gaze dropping to the floor. He took a deep breath, as if preparing himself for something. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, barely above a whisper. "Beatriz, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been keeping from you." I didn't know how to say it. Beatriz's heart raced. This was it. The truth. She had waited for this moment, for the answers, and now it was all about to come out. "I'm listening," she said, her voice barely audible. Ethan took another deep breath, then looked up at her. His eyes were filled with a mixture of guilt and something else she couldn't quite place. "I've been seeing someone else." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. She felt her knees weaken, but she didn't let herself fall. She stood her ground, her eyes never leaving his face. "I didn't want you to find out like this, Beatriz. I wanted to tell you in person, but I just couldn't. I'm sorry." Beatriz felt a cold numbness wash over her. The woman's voice, the call, everything fell into place. But now the reality of it hit harder than she could have ever imagined. "You," Beatriz started, but the words caught in her throat. She didn't know what to say. How could she respond to this? "I never meant for you to find out like this," Ethan repeated, his voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you." But the damage was already done. The room felt like it was closing in on Beatriz as she processed Ethan's confession. The words echoed in her mind, but they didn't seem to make sense, as if they were coming from someone else. "I've been seeing someone else." She heard the words again, and each time they landed harder than the last. Ethan stood there, his posture defeated, his face crumpled with guilt. Beatriz could see the remorse in his eyes, but it wasn't enough. Nothing would ever be enough to undo the damage he had caused. The silence between them stretched on for what felt like an eternity. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead, all she could do was stand there, numb, trying to grasp the gravity of what was happening. Beatriz began, her voice barely a whisper. "How long, Ethan? How long has this been going on?" Ethan's eyes flickered, his fingers twitching as if he were struggling to find the right words. "A few months," he finally admitted, his voice low and full of regret. "I never meant for it to happen, Beatriz. It happened." A wave of anger surged through Beatriz, but it was tempered by a deep sense of hurt that almost left her breathless. A few months. That was how long he had been betraying her, lying to her face. That was how long she had been blind to the truth. She took a step back, almost stumbling as the weight of his betrayal pressed on her chest. The man she had trusted, the man she had loved, had been hiding this from her. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks, and she felt the air in her lungs grow heavier with every breath. "Who is she?" Beatriz finally managed to ask, her voice shaking but firm. She needed to know everything. There was no turning back now. Ethan hesitated, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Her name is Olivia," he said softly. "I met her at work. It started as just a friendship, but it turned into more. I never meant to hurt you, Beatriz. I swear I didn't." Beatriz closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady herself. Olivia. The name felt foreign, almost like an insult in her mind. She couldn't picture it. She couldn't understand it. The idea that there was someone else who had taken Ethan's attention, someone who had shared his time and care, while she had been left in the dark, was unbearable. "How could you do this to me?" Beatriz asked, her voice cracking with emotion. "How could you betray me like this, Ethan? After everything we've been through?" Ethan's face crumpled even further, his eyes welling with tears. "I don't know, Beatriz. I don't know. I was stupid. I let things get out of hand. And now I'm paying the price for it." "Paying the price?" Beatriz repeated bitterly. "This isn't just some mistake, Ethan. You've been lying to me. You've been with someone else for months, and you expect me to just forgive you? To move past this?" Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, he just stared at her, his lips trembling. He looked so lost, so broken, and part of her almost wanted to feel sorry for him. Almost. But the pain in her chest was too raw, too real, for her to even consider forgiving him right now. She had given him her trust, her love, and in return, he had shattered it all. "I need you to leave," Beatriz said suddenly, her voice hardening. It wasn't a request. It was a demand. "I need you to leave and give me space." Ethan's face paled, and for a moment it seemed as if he were going to protest, to beg her to understand, to make things right. But the look in her eyes, cold, resolute, silenced him. He stood there for another second, as if waiting for her to change her mind, but Beatriz didn't move. She didn't say anything else. With a final, desperate glance, Ethan turned and left without another word. Beatriz watched him go, her heart heavy with the weight of the goodbye she hadn't wanted to say, but had no choice but to say. As the door clicked shut behind him, Beatriz let out a long breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She stood there for a few moments, her hand still gripping the edge of the table as the silence of the apartment enveloped her. The room felt so empty now. The echoes of Ethan's footsteps seemed to linger in the air, and Beatrice wondered if they would ever truly fade. She couldn't stay here. Not like this. She needed to move, to escape the suffocating reminder of her broken heart. She grabbed her jacket and her phone, walking to the door, determined to get away, to find a place where the memories of this moment could begin to fade. But as she reached for the door, her phone buzzed. A text. Her heart skipped a beat. It was from an unknown number. Her hand shook slightly as she opened the message. The words sent a chill down her spine. "You think this is over? It's only just begun." Beatrice's blood ran cold. The woman. The one who had called her last night. She wasn't done with her yet. Beatrice's fingers trembled as she stared at the ominous message on her phone screen. The words seemed to taunt her, daring her to make sense of them. "You think this is over? It's only just begun." The cold certainty behind the words sent a wave of unease through her, the weight of Ethan's betrayal suddenly feeling like nothing in comparison to what lay ahead. Her breath caught in her throat as she locked eyes on the text. She wanted to throw the phone across the room, to stop thinking about it, to pretend it didn't exist. But deep down, she knew that wouldn't make it go away. Whoever this woman was, she wasn't done with Beatrice yet. The familiar hum of the city outside filtered in through the window. But inside, all Beatrice could hear was the rapid beating of her heart. She needed answers. She needed to know who this woman was, and what her intentions were. Beatrice took a deep breath, her mind racing. She was done being passive, done sitting in the dark, waiting for things to unravel on their own. If this woman thought she could manipulate her, control her, she was mistaken. Beatrice wasn't about to let anyone tear apart her life any further. The first step was clear. She needed to confront this woman, find out who she was, how she knew so much, and why she was messing with Beatrice's life. The idea of confronting her made her stomach twist with anxiety, but Beatrice was done running from the truth. Her mind kept returning to the conversation she'd had with Ethan earlier. Olivia. The name still stung, a reminder of everything that had been torn apart. What was the connection? Was this woman just some stranger, or was she tied to the web of lies that Ethan had spun? Beatrice paced across the apartment, trying to calm her racing thoughts. She needed to be careful. This was no longer just about Ethan. It was about something deeper, something more dangerous. Whoever this woman was, she had something planned, and Beatrice had to be ready. She glanced at her phone again, considering calling Ethan. But what good would it do? The damage had already been done. The trust between them had shattered, and no amount of apologies or explanations could fix it now. She couldn't rely on him. She had to rely on herself. Suddenly her phone buzzed again, this time with a call. The number was hidden, unfamiliar, but Beatrice didn't hesitate. She answered immediately, her heart pounding in her chest. "Hello?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. A low chuckle echoed from the other end of the line, sending a chill down her spine. It was the same voice, the woman from before. "I'm glad you finally decided to pick up," the voice purred, sending shivers through Beatrice. "I thought it might take you a little longer to get brave. What do you want?" Beatrice's voice was firmer now, though it still wavered slightly. "Why are you doing this? What do you have to do with me and Ethan?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, Beatrice thought the woman might not answer. But then she spoke again, her voice dripping with amusement. "Oh, sweet Beatrice," she said, as if savoring each word. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about Ethan. This is about you. I'm here because I want to make sure you understand exactly how much power I have over your life. And trust me, it's more than you could ever imagine." Beatrice's mind raced. Power. What was she talking about? What kind of game was this woman playing? Beatrice knew she was walking a thin line, But she couldn't back down now. "What do you want from me?" she demanded, her voice shaking but resolute. "I don't know who you are, but I'm not afraid of you." The woman's laugh echoed through the phone again. "Oh, you should be," she said softly. "You should be very afraid. I'm not someone you can just forget about, Beatriz. I have eyes everywhere. I know everything." Beatriz felt a cold sweat break out across her forehead. Eyes everywhere? What did that mean? Was this woman watching her? "You're not in control here," Beatriz snapped, her voice gaining strength despite the fear bubbling inside her. "I'm not going to let you manipulate me. If you think you can scare me into submission, you're wrong. I'll find you, and I'll put a stop to this." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Beatriz's heart raced, and for a moment, she wondered if the call had ended. But then the woman spoke again, her voice low and almost sadistic. "We'll see, won't we?" she murmured, before the line went dead. Beatriz stood there, staring at the screen of her phone. Her hands were shaking now, but she forced herself to take steady, calming breaths. This was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. With a surge of determination, she dropped her phone onto the couch and grabbed her coat. She needed to find answers, and she needed to find them fast. The woman wasn't going to stop until she had torn Beatriz's life apart completely. But Beatriz wouldn't let that happen. Not now. Not ever. Beatriz stepped into the street, the chill of the evening air biting at her skin. Her heart was still racing from the call, but now there was a new fire inside her. Anger mixed with determination. She couldn't let herself be afraid. Not anymore. The city buzzed around her as she walked, people bustling about, but everything felt distant. Her focus was razor-sharp now. She had to find this woman, to understand why she was tormenting her. It was no longer just about Ethan or the betrayal. This woman had crossed a line, and Beatriz would do whatever it took to end this. As Beatriz made her way down the dimly lit streets, she thought back to the things the woman had said. "I have eyes everywhere." Beatriz couldn't shake the feeling that those words held more truth than she wanted to admit. Whoever this woman was, she had to have been watching Beatriz for a long time. A thought crossed her mind. What if the woman had been close to her all along, hiding in plain sight? Someone from her past. Someone who knew how to manipulate her, how to hurt her where it would matter the most. The possibilities twisted in her mind, but she refused to let herself get distracted. She needed a plan, something solid to follow. She pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders, the evening air making her senses sharper. Her phone buzzed again, and this time, the number was familiar. Ethan. Beatriz hesitated for only a second before answering. "Beatriz." Ethan's voice came through the phone, thick with urgency. "Are you okay? I've been trying to reach you. I know things have been crazy, but we need to talk." Beatriz felt a surge of frustration, but she swallowed it down. She couldn't deal with him now, not while she was in the middle of this. "I don't have time for this right now, Ethan," she said coldly, her words cutting through the tension. "I'm not interested in talking about us. I need to deal with something else." "What do you mean, deal with something else?" Ethan's voice was tinged with confusion. "Beatriz, we need to—" "I'll talk to you later," she interrupted, not willing to let him drag her into another emotional conversation. "I have to go." She ended the call before he could say anything else, her mind already racing toward the task at hand. She couldn't rely on Ethan anymore. Whatever this woman wanted, Beatriz was going to have to handle it on her own. The phone vibrated again in her hand, but it wasn't Ethan. It was another message from the same unknown number. "You think you can escape? Think again." Beatriz's heart dropped into her stomach. The woman was tracking her every move. She wasn't safe, not anywhere. Beatriz's eyes scanned the area, looking for something, anything, that might lead her to this mystery person. It was a long shot, but it was the only lead she had. The alleyway up ahead seemed quiet, unassuming. but something about it called to her. She quickened her pace, every instinct in her body telling her to be careful. But she couldn't stop now. She was so close. As she turned into the alley, a figure stepped from the shadows, blocking her path. Beatriz froze, her breath catching in her throat. The figure was tall, clad in a long coat, their face obscured by the low brim of a hat. But it was the eyes that stood out. Cold, calculating, and entirely unfamiliar. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the tension thick in the air. Beatriz's pulse quickened, her body on high alert. Was this her? Was this the woman who had been tormenting her? The figure tilted their head slightly, studying Beatriz with a look that seemed both amused and curious. Then finally they spoke. "Beatriz, you're getting in over your head." The voice was low, and though it wasn't the same voice from the phone, it still sent a shiver down Beatriz's spine. "You've come this far, but now you've reached the point of no return." Beatriz's mind raced. This wasn't the woman from the call, but it didn't matter. Whoever this was, they were clearly involved in whatever twisted game was being played. "I don't know what you want from me, but I'm not afraid of you," Beatriz said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. She wasn't going to let them see her weakness. The figure took a step closer, their shadow engulfing Beatriz. "You should be," they whispered, before quickly disappearing into the darkness of the alleyway. Beatriz stood there, frozen in place. Her mind screamed for her to chase after them, but she was unsure. What was she walking into? Was this part of the trap? Or had she just encountered a new player in this dangerous game? She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. She had to stay focused. This wasn't over yet. Taking a deep breath, she turned and walked back down the alley, her senses heightened. Whatever was coming next, Beatriz was ready for it. She couldn't afford to back down now.